midpoint of the tunnel that I was talking about before, where they actually started to work on the project. They dug a shaft 33 feet wide and probably about 25 feet in length from the surface of the roadway right above us, right down to track level where we are now, and they had one crew going east and the other crew going west. Now, the railroad line was a great success economically in 1844 and 1845, and the Long Island Railroad made lots of money from it. It actually turned a huge profit. And the reason for this is because the Long Island Railroad had a very carefully laid out business plan. According to their plan, all the operating costs for operating their entire system from New York to Boston would be paid for by the money that they would generate off of Brooklyn and Long Island from the local traffic. And that all the money that they would take in from running out to Boston and New England would be where the profit margin would come from. And it worked. It was all perfect. Then what happened was Vanderbilt changed the business plan model on them. Now, to back up a minute, originally when the Long Island Railroad was almost completed, they sent out their emissaries to talk to the other railroad lines on the other side of Long Island Sound to form the route between New York and Boston. And the Long Island Railroad's emissaries were flatly told, we're not going to deal with you unless Cornelius Vanderbilt is involved with the project. And this is called restraint of trade. So today it would violate a myriad of federal laws, which it in fact did back then, but there was no enforcement of interstate trade laws until Teddy Roosevelt came around in the 1890s. So there was nobody to enforce any of this, so the Long Island Railroad began whining and dining Vanderbilt to get him involved with this project. Now, contrary to popular belief, the New York Central Railroad and Grand Central Terminal were not Vanderbilt's first railroad endeavors. This was right here. The Long Island Railroad was Cornelius Vanderbilt's first railroad project. So he became involved with the project, he became a board of directors member, and he became the operations director, and he also supplied the steamboats that would make the shuttle run between Greenport, Long Island, and the railheads in Connecticut that led up to Boston. So he made the whole thing run, and it ran profitably. Now, what happened was, Vanderbilt being Vanderbilt said, hey, this Long Island Railroad's a good thing. I could use them to destroy my enemies in the Long Island Sound transportation business and take the enemies over. So this is what they did. They had a price war, a fare war. Vanderbilt figured out the decay rates for the income of the New York, Providence, and Boston Railroad, which he wanted to take over because he had a grudge against them for 20 years. And he also wanted to take over the New Jersey Steam Navigation Company, which operated in Long Island Sound. He wanted to take them over too because he also had a grudge against them. So to do this, Vanderbilt calculated the decay rate at different fare structures. So he figured out that the Long Island Railroad lowered their fare from $5 down to $2, that the Long Island Railroad could drive out those two other companies out of business. And the way this would work would be that the value on the stock market for those other companies' stocks would come down so low that Vanderbilt could snatch them all up and corner them, which is exactly what he did. Vanderbilt started a price war with them. Long Island Railroad cut their fare by more than half, and Vanderbilt was able to gain control of his former enemies. And everything was going along fine for the Long Island Railroad because he told the railroad, hey, once the competition's gone, we can charge anything we feel like because we'll become the new monopoly. You know, Vanderbilt came around saying that he's a reformer, he's the outside guy, he breaks up monopolies, but all he was really doing was replacing the old monopoly with his own monopoly that he owned himself.